Hi everyone. So we're back again for how to win the Chevening interview. And I have two Cheveners with me, my dear friend Joseph and Janet, who will be sharing tips because they were in the room and they passed through the process and they won the scholarship. So like I was saying, I think the first thing they normally do when you get into that room is to introduce yourself. I don't know if that's for everybody. Janet, did they ask you to introduce yourself when you got into the room?
Yeah, so when I got into the room for my own interview, the panel, the lead for the interview, she introduced herself and gave opportunity to her colleagues to introduce themselves. So afterwards, they asked me to talk about myself and my background. So that was my own case. So I had some colleagues that their first question was something like, why Chevening, for instance. But in my own experience, I was just asked to introduce myself.
Okay, so when they asked you to introduce yourself, so how did you do that? I thought got their attention.
So what I did was, first of all, you have to keep in mind that before you get to the interview, they'll go through your essays. So most likely they already know about you, about your background, and a little about what you do. So it's very advisable to somehow fix your storyline a bit, but expand on it. What do I mean? For instance, if your storyline is talking about being in the energy space, for instance, you can't come to the part where you're introducing yourself to talk about something you did in the health sector. So it's going to be confusing. So the interview is just an opportunity for them to get to meet you and put like a personality to the essays that they've written. So what I did was, first of all, I talked about my degree, my background, my first degree, and what I was doing at work currently. I also talked about the skills that I had, both academic, professional skills and personal skills, and I tried to link it up to what I currently do to the issue that I was trying to solve. So I talked about that a bit. Then I talked about volunteering, how I love volunteering a lot, and I mentioned some key volunteering experiences that I have done, like I've participated in, just both from my essays and a little bit of what I have done after the essays. Then afterwards, I highlighted the issue that Nigeria has I'm trying to solve and how I want to get the scholarship to come back to solve that problem. So that's why. So I ended up by saying, okay, this is me, this is my past, this is my educational background, this is what I do career-wise, and this is this issue we have in Nigeria, and this is why I want this scholarship to come to solve this issue. So I just give a summary of everything in my introduction.
Okay, thank you, Janet. Joseph, I don't know, was that the same thing that happened for you? Like when you got into the room, what happened?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Joseph.
Okay, I will start by saying good evening, everyone from here. And once more, congratulations to each and every one of you that have made this thus far. Well done. In line with your question, Precious, I would want to say something very important. Your interview is just like you're close to the door, but you are yet to unlock the door. I repeat myself. You're close to the door, but you're yet to unlock the door. And I strongly believe that each of the applicants here, they are not benighted of the fact that what it takes to go close to the door is different from what it takes to unlock the door. Now, during my interview, my interviewers, I never underrated or envisaged I'm going to meet them because I know too well I'm going to see someone from the Chevening Alumni Association, and I'm going to see someone from the FCDO. I never envisaged I'm going to meet someone like Katrula Liang, the British High Commissioner to Nigeria. So when I was ushered in for the interview, they started with the icebreaker, which is normally known as introduction. Introduce yourself. I did introduce myself. But now, according to Janet, she said something very important. Your introduction should be in line with what your area of studies and alongside with the content of your essays is very important. So I started by my name, what I do currently or presently, my accomplishments, the impacts, the number of impacts, what I have done, where I work, and so on and so forth. my volunteering services, skills, experience, and what I intend doing in the future. So it was the same. It's called an icebreaker, just to know you. You understand? But before you get in there, and for you to actually get that part, you need to practice. You need to actually, practice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Joseph. And that leads to the next. So after the introduction, I think basically what they do next is to ask about the leadership. I don't know if I should read that question again, because I think which is Chevening is looking for individuals who will be future leaders or influencers in their own countries. So explain how you meet these requirements using clear examples, your own leadership and influencing skills to support your answer. So Joseph, was that how they said the question to you, or did they tweak it? Because I know sometimes they can tweak the question.
Okay, thank you, Precious. Thank you for that. Well, yes, my case was similar, but not exactly the same. My question was, what is leadership, and how have you demonstrated leadership within a professional environment? There's a thin line between you demonstrating leadership in your school, while in school, and while at work. That is a professional environment where you work. Now, I strongly believe that each and every one of us, be it on this webinar or outside this webinar, have our own unique way of defining leadership. And the interview panel are not expecting you to reinvent the wheel. They want to hear your own part of definition and how you've demonstrated this in the past within a professional. So if during my time, I was asked to actually give an example of how I have demonstrated my leadership skills and my influence within a professional environment. Now, if you're giving, for example, if I'm being asked to do that in a professional environment and I'm giving an example of my leadership accomplishment when I was in the university, it is not in line. You are getting 0/10. Or you are giving a leadership example of where you were actually volunteering with a particular organization. No, it is 0. So what they want to hear from you is, why working in an environment, a professional environment, what did you do? Which you can leverage on the STAR approach if you want. What was the situation, the tasks, the action you took, and the results that you got? So during my time, I leveraged on, while I was working in the bank as a team lead of over 10 direct sales agents, how I actually had to move the direct sales agent from the traditional working environment to a non-traditional working environment, to upscale the new to bank of the branch, deposit mobilization, and so on and so forth. At the end, the branch became one of the best branch at the end of the first quarter of the year. So we should try to understand what the panel wants. If they say, give me an example of where you've demonstrated your leadership skills and your influence within a professional environment, please, your answer should be narrowed to why you are working in a professional environment, not while you were leading in your school, while you were leading maybe as a volunteer in a particular organization, but they just want you to, because the reason why they ask within a professional environment or a professional organization is there's what called unpopular opinion. Unpopular opinion is always what leads to a new development or new accomplishment in an organization. Now, that unpopular opinion, what actually draws it back is in most cases is the policy of an organization. So if you are within a professional environment, you will actually be tied, you'll be tied because of the policy of the organization, and you want to work alongside with the policy of the organization. So it will be very difficult for you to come up with an unpopular opinion in a professional environment. So your ability to take a bold step and come up with an unpopular opinion in a professional environment makes you an outstanding leader. And your ability to actually influence others to follow you alongside, the unpopular opinion to achieve a particular goal or a common goal makes you also an influencer. So we should understand, mine was, what is leadership? Give an example of how you've demonstrated this leadership skill within a professional environment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Joseph, for that. So I want to ask Jeanette. So Jeanette, under the leadership, did it go directly to like read your essay back to you, the question, the way Chevening structured it, or they twisted the question?
Okay. So before I proceed, I would like to state, like, for those listening to this video or participating in this webinar, that the views that we're going to give you in this interview is solely our from our experience with the Chevening interview. We are not trying to say, okay, this is how it must be, or this is the standard for the UK government Chevening Scholarship. So we're just sharing our experiences and our opinions from our experience and why we think we got the scholarship. So just putting that disclaimer out there that this is not the view of the UK Chevening government or the UK government Chevening Scholarship. It's just our personal opinion.
Yeah.
So back to the question you asked, right? So now for the leadership essay, they asked me, the lead of the panel, she read out the question the way as it was, and that was one of the first questions she asked me. So she just read the question the way it is. Okay, so tell me how you've shown this, you've displayed leadership in the past. So one thing I'm going to talk about before I proceed with how I answer this question is, you need to read your essays. So when I applied for the Chevening Scholarship, after writing the essays initially, I felt that I wasn't very prepared then. So I didn't have the hope that I was going to get shortlisted for the interview, first of all. So I didn't even know that I was shortlisted for the interview until I think 3 or 2 weeks after I got the email. That was when I got to see the email. So my interview date was a bit towards the end, like I think ending of April or so, but I was among the last set of people to get interviewed. So I had a lot of time before my interview. They had picked the date before the last date. So what I did was I had to read the essays. I spoke with some scholars then, and the advice that one scholar gave to me was to read my essays. So you have to read your essays. I know it might sound cliche because yeah, these are your essays, you read them yourself, you feel you know the essays a lot, but you need to read your essays, if possible, every day, from the day you get shortlisted to your interview day. Please read your essays. And I'm not saying you're reading your essays because you want to just cram it and then talk about the essays like as it is in the interview. But I feel the more you read the essays, the more it becomes a part of you. So when you're telling the story or when you're giving your examples, you come out more natural. It won't look like you rehearsed your answers. So I had some essays. I had 3 examples in my essay, my leadership essay, but I dropped one of the examples and I used a more recent example from the time frame of the shortlist to the interview. So I gave 3 examples. 2 of the examples were from my essays, and then there was one example that was not of my essay because I noticed that example was a bit strong. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, Jeanette, we can hear you.
Okay. I noticed that the example I had was a bit stronger than the old examples. So most times, after you have submitted your essays, you might have done something that is really big. Maybe you had a new project that had a very big impact, or at work you had very big projects you're working on that you think it's stronger than the one example you have in your essay. It's good to include that example, in my own opinion, because it also goes to show that you've grown. You're not just stagnant, like the examples you had or the leadership experience you had months ago before the selection, that is in August or in June the previous year, is not the same person you are. Like there's a little change from that point to the point of the interview. So, and another advice I'll give you is to start with very strong essays. So you have to start with the very strong examples that you have, the strongest example first, then the next, and then the least. Because you find out that after giving your first example and your second example, it's very possible that they might ask you to stop, maybe because of time, or maybe you talked for too long, or they're okay with the 2 examples, for instance. So that way, you've been able to put out your strong suits first before you bring out the other examples. Now, you always use the star approach, just the same way you use the star approach in your essays. You need to use the star approach when talking about your experience. So you talk about the situation, the task, the action, and the results. And during my own interview, I also added the lesson, that is style, like the lesson learned from the experience. So when giving your leadership example essays, for instance, I'll give one of the examples I gave. I talked about how I was in engineering. Oh, sorry. I was just checking the chat that they have. Okay, so I gave an example of an NGO I founded in school that was supposed to help encourage young girls to join engineering and take up STEM classes. So I gave the example of how I started, the issue that was there, how so many girls were not taking up engineering because of the stereotype and the gender gap we had in engineering, and how this affected the performance of students in my school, and how I started this NGO to help solve the issue. So I talked about the problem, the issue that they had, the tasks, the actions I took to solve the issue, and then the result. So it's very good to show the impact of what you do. So it's not really about the leadership position you held or what you did as a leader. It's about the impact that leadership experience or that action you took in that particular position, the impact it had on others, the impact it had on your community. It could be in the health sector, it could be in energy, it could be in any sector. You just have to show the results, like the impact to the community. So that's how I answer the question.
Thank you so much, Janet. Elizabeth is here now. Elizabeth, we're talking about the leadership part of the question. So I don't know if when you got into the panel, they asked you the same way it was with the Chevening application, or they kind of tweak the way they asked you the leadership question. Elizabeth.
Hi, Precious. Thank you. Sorry, I won't be able to put on my video because of where I am. So I'll just go ahead and answer the question. I think Jeanette kind of spoke about a lot of the things that I wanted to talk about in terms of the interview, but I'll just focus on leadership questions. So I think for my own case, there was a little bit of twist. I wasn't asked the generic question of, tell me about a time where you exhibited leadership qualities. I wasn't asked that question. So the question I was asked instead was talk about a time where I managed, where I worked on a project and I faced 3 challenges. So I was to tell them what the 3 challenges that I faced were and what I did to overcome those challenges that I faced. So I think that was the twist to the question. It was still kind of like talking about leadership, but it was going a step further to talk about, you know, how you manage situations that you do not even preempt when you are managing maybe a project, for instance, as a leader. So that was the twist to my own question. I think one thing I'll just say is that I can't remember who it was that mentioned the STAR approach, but the same approach you use when writing the essays in terms of using the STAR approach is the same thing you should also adopt when you're responding to the question. So talk about the situation, talk about the task. So in my case, I talked about the situation, talked about the task, and talked about 3 challenges that I faced and what I did to overcome those 3 challenges. That was how I answered that question. Another thing that I want to say is be very specific as to what exactly it is that you did. I know that sometimes we fall into that trap of having to generalize the things we do. And so we tend to use statements like, I and my team did, we did, we gathered, you are supposed to talk about what you did. So even though it's a teamwork, even though it's a team, team effort, focus more on yourself, because you're trying to portray yourself as a leader, and that's what they want to see. They want to see how you as a person, whether it's a project, whether it's a department, whether it's a unit that you're managing, you were able to show yourself as being a leader. So it's important that you're very clear and very specific on that. Another thing that I would say with regards to this question is to be very clear in answering the questions. In my case, the question kind of like had, you know those exam questions that have 1A, 1B, 1C. That was how the question was for me. So you want to be careful not to maybe answer 1A and not answer the B and the C, or answer 1B and C. So try as much as possible to take time to articulate the question, understand the question, and make sure that when you're answering the question, you're answering every aspect of the question that was asked. So in my case, I was talking about a project, so I had to talk about a project. I was talking about 3 challenges. I had to mention 3 challenges. And I had to also talk about what I did to overcome those 3 challenges. And I also got follow-up questions based on my response. So you need to make sure that you're actually answering all the questions that they're asking you, even though the question comes as one. I think I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. So I think we'll go to the next question, which has to do with networking. So I don't know if they actually repeated it or they did like a twist. So the relationship building and shared learning. So let me just read it again. That says, Chevening is looking for individuals with strong professional relationship building skills who engage with the Chevening community and influence and lead others in their chosen profession. So please explain how you build and maintain relationships in a professional capacity, using clear examples of how you currently do this, and outline how you hope to use these skills in the future. So Joseph, was that how they asked you that question, or they kind of tweak it for your networking skills? Did they tweak the question, or did they repeat the question to you?
Okay, thank you, Precious. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so before I actually go into the networking question, I want to point out some important things I think will be of help to everyone here, excluding those that are current Cheveners and those that are now ex-Cheveners. When you get to the interview room, please don't see the interviewers as your friends. See them as your enemies. I repeat myself. Don't see them as your friends. See them as your enemies. Because once you see them as your friends, you'll be too relaxed because they will want to make you comfortable, give you water, make you feel good, and you think that they are happy with you. They are not. They are not. They just want you to, and they will tell you fail. The end result will speak. So see them as your enemies. Don't see them as your friends. Because when you see your enemy in front of you, you will want to shock your enemy. And the only way you can shock your enemy is for you to what? Practice more interviews. Practice with people in your office, at home. Find yourself. Sometimes you couple decide to ask you questions, it will build your confidence. I was shocked at seeing Katrola Liang as the head of my panel. And again, once you get to your interview, you will always have one of the interviewer that will come to pick you. That person is your head of the panel, is the interview head of the panel. Katrola Liang was the one that came to pick me, and I gave her a very good impression. I actually had to tip in something that made her, feel that this guy is okay and he's good. So these are the little things you need to know so as to add to your interview score and all. They say first impression matters, though that's not true at some point because consistent impression is better. So going back to the networking question, you're right. I was asked that too. I was asked that. Remember, there are stages to networking. Why are you networking? Where did you network? Whom did you network? How did you maintain the network? And how did you use the network? And how many persons did the network impact on the results of the network? So when I was asked the same question, I was asked the same question Precious raised. And what I did was to reference when I was in school. And I referenced when I was the Wangele student, National Association of the Wangele Student President, when a lot of things were happening within the association. Some of the students within their 40 don't get their industrial training placement because of they lack the necessary network to actually get that. And most girls were selling themselves out because of that. And I, the president, decided to actually build a professional network. So you can see there must be a reason why you're networking. You can't just, answer. There was a time I met a man in a conference in London, and hearing his name on social media and all, I had to take his number. No, you must give a reason what propelled you to seek for that network. Is it academic network, professional network, or anything? There must be something, there must be a problem. There must be something that propelled or started you, a problem that started you to say, I want to build a network, and where you networked with the person. So I actually had to start with the problem, then connected with whom I networked and where I networked with the person, then how I sustained the network. I exchanged, he gave me his contact. I actually also highlighted the challenges, because when you are networking with people, people will actually repel you. It's normal. In most cases, they will repel you. So it's a challenge. And what the interview panel want to see is how you overcame, or how you actually surmounted that challenge. How did you overcome it? Because as at that point, they want to see if you're a resilient kind of person. They want to see if you're a kind of person that is persistent. These are the leadership skills they are looking at, your networking skills they are looking at. So I started by stating what propelled me to go into the network. Is it something that requires me to build a professional network or academic network? So in that case, since I was looking for someone that can actually aid the Wangele students to get industrial training, I now needed a professional network. I need to network with someone who has a company that can actually get these Wangele students in for their industrial training. So from there, I networked with this person. And when I first met him during a conference, in a professional conference, he repelled me, but I didn't give up. So him seeing that I didn't give up, we exchanged contacts and so on. I kept in touch. I maintained the contact. I kept in touch and so on and so forth. That was how I was able to pull over 30 Wangele students into the company, and all of them were able to actually have their industrial training with the company. And that did not stop there. Other Wangele students are also having their industrial training in that company. That shows the continuity of your network. So what really, propelled you to network? How did you overcome the challenges when you're networking? How did you maintain your network? And how did you use your network? So are you still using that network now? So these are the things they want you to connect. Thank you, Precious.
Thank you so much, Joseph, for that. Janet, I don't know, did they also repeat the question directly to you, or there was a tweak to the networking question?
Okay, so for my networking question, they repeated the question that way. I think this was just my so in the UK, said that way. So for the networking, it's just like he said, they asked the question the same way. And as he mentioned earlier, it's very good to talk about the reason for having that network and continuity. So most times people network just because they want to use someone's contact, and that's all. Or maybe get the contact and then the person loves you, and then that's just it. So it's also good to show that, okay, you continue to network with, or you try to maintain the relationship after meeting this person. You don't just get to contact and get to meet them. So when actually asked me the question, I also 3 examples, just that I like to make it very concise, that it'll be too long, and I'll be able to answer the questions within the time. So what I did was I'll share one example I gave, one of my networking examples I gave. So it was just after COVID that we had our interview, just when COVID and things were settling a bit, things were not still very stable yet. So I talked about how I was supposed to do my NYSC during COVID-19. And because of COVID-19, everything was disrupted. The company I had in mind to work in, I think they didn't take corpus that year. And because companies were closed and shut down, there was no way for me to go to search for to go and drop my resume or get a place for my posting. So I had to leverage social media. So I used LinkedIn to connect with people, and I was able to meet somebody in my space, and he linked me up to a company. and I was asked to do an interview. That was his company partially. I think he was part of it was the part owner of the company. So I did the interview for this company, but I didn't get the job after doing the interview. So I told the panel that even if I didn't get this job at this time, I still maintained this relationship with this person over time. I still checked up on him once in a while, talked about things in the space. Like whenever I see his post on LinkedIn, for instance, I would drop insights, I would make comments about whatever he's talking about, or just share my knowledge and stuff. So after a while, during my service, he reached out to me that his company had this project. They were trying into the ammonia market. Like they're trying to design like have a plant in Nigeria that will produce ammonia instead of us importing ammonia. And because the needs for ammonia was exceeding what we could supply, what the companies they had in Nigeria could supply. So they wanted me to work with a group of other researchers for this project. And coincidentally, of the people on this project that was alumni. She was in the UK. I think she finished like university, one of the universities in the UK, and she was in. So I thought the project. So giving that example, aside from, I was able to show how. Okay, yeah, I was able to show how the network I built. I just didn't build a network and then just because it didn't work out for me. You know, when you ask someone to help you for a job and then the person gives you an interview in his company and you didn't get the job, normally you'll be angry with the person and you just stop talking with the person. But I didn't see it that way. I was able to maintain that relationship, and up till now, we still have, if he has a project, for instance, he needs a research assistant in his company, he brings up, he consults me to work with his team or something. So that was one of the examples I gave. So when giving your networking answer, ensure you talk about a challenge that your network shouldn't always be there for you to benefit. It's also good to show how your network was able to benefit from you being connected to them. Like now, I was able to help his company with this project. That way, I was able to give back to him somehow. And also, to your network you should be able to show how you use your network to impact your community. Just like the example he gave, he used that network to help so many students in his society or in his university. So you should show the impact is very important. Like give numbers. Okay, through this network, I was able to give, let me say, provide a library that helped 200 students in a particular secondary school that didn't have access to a library or to laptops. Just show the impact. The importance in the Chevening is impact. Whatever you're doing, you're meant to show how what you're doing has impacted either somebody, no matter how small. So most times it mustn't be very big. You don't have to feed 5,000 people with 2 loaves of bread and 5 fishes to show that you've made an impact. It has to be just no matter how little you think that impact you have made, just show numbers, show how, okay, I was able to train 5 people, these 5 people trained 20 more people, or this thing is still continuing even after I'd left the association. So that was how I answered the networking essay.
Thank you so much, Jane. Elizabeth, I don't know, was it the same way they asked the question directly, or they added a tweak to the question?
I think it was the same way they asked the question. I think one thing that I would say was a shocker for me. Well, not necessarily a shocker, but I think I was just surprised, was the fact that the example I gave in my essay with regards to the networking question, I talked about a particular person that I met on LinkedIn, who, through the network I established with her on LinkedIn, she's the co-founder of a grant giving platform called Share Yourself. So I connected with her, and then during the COVID-19 pandemic, they were giving out small grants, I think about $500 at the time, to youth-led organizations that were doing work with young people to address the negative effects on people at the time that the COVID was having. So through the network I established with her, I was able to get a grant that I used in implementing a project in my organization at the time, where we provided COVID-19 sensitization. We provided relief materials like foodstuffs, and we also provided dignity kit materials, so like sanitary pads, deodorants, like basic necessities that girls and women need to maintain their health and well-being during the time of the pandemic. So why did I say this? Particularly what I was surprised about was the fact that one of the interviewers actually did not just say the name of the person, but said the name of the person, the country the person is from, and like two other organizations that the person is affiliated with. And those were information that I did not provide in my essay. So what that simply just showed was that this person probably did their research and actually went on LinkedIn to search for this person, find out who they are, what they do. And so it's just something I just want to put out there that, I think Janet mentioned this and Joseph mentioned this as well. Go back and read your essay. Like, you cannot, I don't know how to say it, but you can't overemphasize that fact. Go back and read your essay and pay attention to every little detail. Things like names, the names of maybe the professors in your school that you wrote in your essay, even the course that you're going to study. Like, there are some course that four words in one, And so you might think that these things are things that will just come so effortless to you. But you'll be surprised that you get there and you forget the name of your course. And you don't want to be in that situation where things that you know what it is, but because, you didn't pay attention to those little details. So imagine if, the interviewer asked that question and I was looking shocked, I was looking surprised, or I was looking confused. Like, I don't know what he's talking about. Because he didn't really mention her name, right? He spoke more about who she was. But I could immediately tell, it's my essay. I could immediately tell who it is that he was referring to. And he was very particular in that question, right? So that's just one thing I wanted to say. Another thing again is, as everybody has said, really, networking question, people tend to focus a lot on just who they met. But what I would advise anybody is talk about how you met the person, who the person is, what the person does, what you are doing with that person, and how the thing you are doing with that person has an impact. Like, you cannot just say, oh, I met this person and we exchanged contacts and we impacted lives. That's a very generic and very vague statement, Oh, I met, let me give an example. Okay, let me give an example of my essay, basically. I went to a conference for that was run by UNFPA, West Central Africa at the time. And when I got to the conference, I got to meet the regional director for AFRIAN. AFRIAN is a youth network that, is established across West and Central Africa, that is run by the United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA. And so when I got to that conference, I met this person. I had a one-on-one discussion with him, and I got to talk to him about the fact that we didn't have that network in Nigeria, right? And I felt that it was a network that was going to be beneficial to us in Nigeria, and I thought that we should actually have the network established in Nigeria. And then when I went back to my country, I connected with him. Through him, I was able to get in touch with the country office of UNFPA in Nigeria, and I was able to put together, a team of about 10 people. We went to the office, we made our pitch, and thankfully we were able to get, funding and support from the country office at the time to establish the network. And as at the day I was talking to them, I was like, this network is currently strong. I'm one of the founding members. I've been leading the organization for the past 5 years. We currently have about 85 limited organizations that are members of the network, and we've been able to do ABCXYZ, right? So I have told them who the person was. I have told them, what the person does. I have told them where I met the person or how I met the person. I have told them, what I did with that person. And I've gone ahead to tell them the impact of what I and this person, did on my community or in my organization, right? So it's not enough for you to just say that you went somewhere and you met somebody, but you need to be very, very, specific and clear as to how that network has led to impact. Another thing I want to say is that it doesn't have to be somebody who you met in the UK or the US or abroad, like outside the country. It could be your mentor within your country, within your state. It could be it could even be somebody within your organization that you met. But just be able to show that because you had that network or you maintained that network, you were able to achieve, certain things that made impact on the lives of other people, right? Because I feel like sometimes people always think that your examples always have to be international based. I sometimes use examples that are within the country or even my state. You don't always have to use examples that are outside the country. And your examples don't always have to have a lot of numbers. It could just be 50 people. It could be, 100 people. It could be 20 people. But if you can show how impactful whatever it is you did with those 20 people were, trust me, you are way, way better than somebody who says they've reached 1,000 people and can't really show the impact that the thing they did had on that 1,000 people. So I'll stop here. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that. And you just talked about studying in the UK. So I'll ask Janet about the studying in the UK question. I don't know if they also read it directly straight to you or they added a tweak to it, which is outline why you have chosen the 3 universities, how this relates to your previous academic or professional experience, and your plans for the future. So do not duplicate the information you entered on your work experience on this form. So was that how they asked you about studying in the UK or they added a tweak to it?
So for the studying in the UK essay, they didn't ask the question that way. So we have to be, when you get to the interview, you need to be very, you should bear some things in mind. The way they ask the question, that you're not careful, you just give a straight answer, not knowing that that's the leadership essay they're asking you about, or that in the definition they're asking you about. For instance, if they ask you, what does leadership mean to you, and how have you shown leadership in the past? For instance, if you just go and define leadership alone, and then maybe just give one very short example, oh, I showed leadership in the past in my former organization where I was the, let me say, sales rep for the company, and I was in charge of 10 employees, and then you stop. That means you've already answered your leadership essay. It might not be very fortunate for them to ask you that question again, like the way it is in the essay. That might be the only platform or the only opportunity you would have to share your leadership experiences. So in my own case, for the study in the UK essay, they didn't ask me the question the way it is on the website. What happened was she just asked me, are you changing any of your university choice courses? Like, are you changing any of them? And I told her yes. She said, okay, so why are you changing your university course or your university choice? Why did you change? Why are you changing it? So I just understood from the way she asked the question that was actually my study in the UK essay, and that is the choice of courses essay. So I gave her the reason for changing the university, my particular university. So initially I was supposed to study at I think it was Newcastle University. I've forgotten the particular course. Something advanced. So University of Bradford. That was my first choice initially. Advanced Chemical Engineering and Process Engineering. And I wanted to change it to Gordon University Energy Management, right? So I just thought that, okay, yes, I want to change my first choice from this university to this university, and this is why I want to change it. So I gave the reasons for making that change in that particular course. And then I used the opportunity to talk about the university. So I talked about things about the course, that how the course is more linked to my career objective, and specific reasons why I picked that particular course in that particular city. So I did that for the first choice. Then I moved to my second choice immediately, and I moved to my third choice because I knew that if I just given her just the answer as, okay, I'm changing from this course to this course because I think this course is better, for instance, I might not get an opportunity to give exact reasons for picking my other 2 university and courses. So I just answered all at once. So one thing I'll talk about for the particular question is, when giving reasons for your choice of course, people most times tend to fall into the trap of only talking about rating. Oh, according to the QS rating, this university is 7th in the world. According to the 7th on something rating, you just spend the whole time talking about rating, ranking. Is ranked here, is ranked there, is ranked the other way. Different university ranking, both national ranking and global ranking. Yeah, I know rankings are good. They are very to pick a particular course. But one thing I try to use ranking as a reason to choose a particular reasons that could relate to me. So that's where research comes in. You have to do a lot of research, both when preparing for the interviews and even for your essays. You have to research a lot so that you look for something that relates, that resonates to you on a personal basis, that will make you stand out. So for instance, I said I want to study but Gordon University because it was in Scotland, and Scotland is the energy capital of the world. In fact, Scotland in 2018, they had about almost more than 50% of their electricity from renewable energy. And I wanted to study about renewable energy and see how Nigeria can develop its renewable energy sector. So being in Aberdeen would be a very good opportunity because I'll be able to meet with professionals in the space. I would know about the sector. So that was one reason I gave, because of Aberdeen is like the energy capital of the whole of Europe. Another reason was I think my school has a particular laboratory that it's just my school in the whole of the UK. No other university has that laboratory, and it's very important for my course. So I also talked about that laboratory and how it will help me to get like a practical feel of the course, and I just gave reasons for that. So when choosing your course, I don't know the course you're picking, I don't know the university you're choosing, and you're giving the reasons for that course. First of all, get personal reasons, and you have to also show the skills you get from this course and how these skills will help you achieve your career goal. So your interview is like a story. You're telling, okay, this is what I've done in the past, this is my experience in the past, and this is why I want to study this particular course, because I want to do this in the future. And from this course, I'll get the skills. You should be able to pick like 1 or 2 modules, and the skills you get. It's very easy to get it from your university's website. Go to the website and check the course, things about the course. You get that information there. Get the skills you get from this course and how these skills will help you achieve your career objectives. So that's how I answered that question. And I don't fall into the trap of only focusing on your first choice alone, because if you spend the whole time on, I know you spend more time on your first choice, but you should also consider your second and your third university choices. So it doesn't look like it's either this is your first choice or no other. So that was how they asked me the question, and that's how I answered it.
Thank you very much, Jeanette. So I'll just